Other interesting political news, you have Ford CEO Jim Farley on the UAW proposal. This interview from 9/14. And again, it's so disappointing. No relation to Chris Farley. Well, maybe they'll have to do the DNA test. You never know. So this is from CNBC television. Without too much further ado.
Now is Ford CEO Jim Farley with our own Phil LeBeau. Phil?
John, thank you very much.
The same lazy bastard? Pardon the French, but again, a reporter from CNBC. Have they never seen a suit in their life? This gentleman did not suit up, as every man should. The CEO of Ford, he has a blazer on, pretty nice blazer, and a button up. He suited up. CNBC, how low are your standards? He has a tie. He gets some credit. But you're meeting one of the most powerful CEOs in the world, and you can't throw a blazer on. You can't suit up. Needless to say, this interview, we're off to a bad start in my books. I'm only moderately kidding. Or am I? Time shall tell. I might reveal later. But without further ado.
Jim, we're a little over 7 hours away from the strike deadline. Where do things stand? You've made your most...
Again, this was published after the strike began, so I do understand the data is a little stale in that regard, but it is interesting, I still think, to hear his perspective.
With recent offer, what have you heard back from the UAW?
Okay, this is kind of funny, though. Now, again, hindsight's 2020. Kind of ironically hilarious. He's standing in front of a Ford Bronco. Now, I don't know how clever Sean Fain is, the president of the United Auto Workers, but that would be kind of funny if he chose to shut down the Ford Bronco plant, or rather to do a partial strike at that plant, which subsequently caused some layoffs and the plant to be demised for temporarily. If he did that just because he was in front of a Bronco, let me know in the comments, did he do that? That'd be kind of politically clever. I would give him some kudos for that, which is perhaps a dated reference. Kudos used to be a candy bar back in the day. Fun fact.
Well, everyone imagines we're in some room squirreled away doing this final negotiation, and that's what we would love for the last 2 weeks, but nothing's going on. We've received no counteroffer from Sean Fain in the UAW.
Nothing at all?
No.
How frustrated are you with this situation?
Well, we've never seen it before. In 80 years, we've always been able to work through these differences.
Now, in terms of feedback, and again, no matter where you are, if you're from the UAW, if you're from GM Corporate or Ford Corporate, I love hearing more data, more experiences, because it helps make these videos more interesting, and more data, the better. Now, it is interesting that this is the first time in, I believe, like 80 years, you have all three being struck upon at once. So the UAW is not only just striking at Ford, but also GM and Chrysler. Well, now Stellantis, because of the subsequent bankruptcy in 2009, which some would say contributed because of the high UAW cost of labor. But nevertheless, it is interesting that they are all three striking simultaneously. And historically speaking, Ford overwhelmingly has given more to the UAW than GM or Chrysler, Stellantis. Ford actually has more employees who are UAW members than the other two, and they manufacture more vehicles here. Although ironically enough, you look at the top 10 most American vehicles by percentage of parts made in the USA and the assembly point, the top 10 are Tesla, Acura, Honda, I believe Kia. I think GM is the first, GM or Lincoln are the first American brand, but it's like the top 15. The top 10 are ironically, Tesla, and then Japanese companies, which some might argue they're becoming more and more American as they make more cars here, and they employ lots of great workers. But moderately digress.
Because we're always on the side of labor at Ford. We have the highest UAW headcount. We have more people than anyone, build more vehicles. We've never seen anything like this. It's frustrating because many of our team members have negotiated successfully on non-economic issues with the national negotiators. But somehow when we get to these marquee money issues, everything stops. And it's a mystery. We've been putting contracts and negotiating with ourselves since the 29th for 2 weeks, and we still have not had any kind of counteroffer for all those major things, and we're on the eve of one of the largest strikes in our history.
Do you believe Sean Fain is truly negotiating in good faith, or do you think this is a case of he's not even giving you a counteroffer here? He's made a decision, we're going on strike.
Well, I think he's certainly planning, when I saw Facebook Live, He didn't even acknowledge our offer that Bill Ford, the chairman of the company, made 2 days ago until last night, and we still have not gotten an offer.
Now, that is interesting. Given all the data we currently have, I think they want us. I think Sean Fain was never going to accept any offer because, again, the members voted in the 90th percentile in multiple UAW, because, again, there's groups throughout the United States for different plants. They overwhelmingly supported that they were in favor of a strike, unless they got the 10 things they wanted, which would be, again, $80 billion per manufacturer. So $80 billion for Ford, $80 billion for Chrysler, $80 billion for Ford. Again, General Motors, brain fart, so to say, over the course of the 4-year contract, which would cost per employee per year $420,000, which again is in no way feasible.
I don't know what Sean Fain is doing, but he's not negotiating this contract with us as it expires. But I know he's busy planning a strike. We don't want it. I know he thinks this will be a historic strike with all 3 plants.
That's what he wants. Make history, I suspect.
All 3 companies. But we want to make history with a historic deal.
We have talked with people familiar with their plans in terms of what they might announce tonight. Livonia, your transmission plant, really the bread and butter in terms of putting the engines and the vehicles, everything together. That's going to be hit, according to what we understand. What would that do? What kind of chaos would that cause for your manufacturing?
It's enormous. For a engine, transmission, or stamping plant, all the downstream assembly plants would be affected within hours or days. And what
Politically, good move by Sean Fain. You cripple that plant, you don't have to strike at the other plants. They're all going to be inoperable, basically. So in terms of moves on the political chessboard, Sean Fain made a good move. Although long term, will it help get him what he wants? That's really the big debate we're having. Which approach is going to be the most effective?
most Americans don't realize is that although that would disrupt the manufacturing and the assembly of vehicles, many of those workers may not be eligible for the strike fund or for even unemployment. So at a personal level, our employees get hurt.
So how quickly would you have to potentially lay off people from a final assembly plant because you're not getting transmissions in, and therefore there's no production?
Well, within hours or days, depending on the plant and how much.
Again, spoiler alert, they had to lay off 600 employees at that specific plant because of that disruption. Again, I know this video was published a little bit later. Hindsight's, sometimes 2020.
Float we have, we'll have to shut plants, assembly plants, hours or days.
Quickly put in some perspective. The offer that they have, what they're demanding relative to where you are right now, how much damage would that do to the bottom line if you were to say, sure, we'll give you 40%?
If we signed up for the UAW's request, instead of making money and distributing $75,000 in profit sharing in the last 10 years, we would have lost $15 billion and gone bankrupt by now.
Now, again, I wish you would specify, is that $75,000 in the past 10 years? Is that per, well, it would have to be per employee because that'd be pennies if that's total. I wish you'd give more specifications around that figure and how, because I was interested to hear some people in comments were saying they weren't eligible for bonuses. So let me know if you're a Ford UAW member. I'd love to hear what you have to say in regard to the bonus allocation and who qualifies for it.
Now, the average pay would be nearly $300,000 fully fringed for.
Well, he's wrong. It'd be $420,000, but I digress. Or perhaps he's talking about two employees. The other would go to the retirees and the medical benefits for the retirees.
4-day work.
Again, give us more data and statistics. I know there's a finite amount of time when you're doing these interviews, but still, you kind of know me. More data, the better.
Work week. There is no
Per
way.
employee, per UAW
Per
employee.
Yeah, this is our fully tenured school teacher in the U.S. makes $66,000. Someone from the military or fireman makes mid-50,000. This is 4 or 5 times, 6 times what they make. There's no way we can be sustainable as a company.
Now again, he's using emotional rhetoric to respond, using public, using teachers and military. That's apples to oranges. In this particular instance, we're talking about the automotive industry. I don't care about the military comparison between these industries. What he should do, be a more apt approach, mention Toyota, mention Tesla. In your 10Ks, when you're talking to the shareholders, who you think your biggest competitor is, use those figures. Because again, those are the companies that you're trying to compete with. Maybe with debate, you probably can't, given Tesla has a big lead, a lot of technical engineering resources there, and the Ford Mustang E-Mach, terrible name, just bastardized the original Great Mustang, which is still made, thankfully, with a V8 and 3 pedals, manual transmission, as all cars should. But again, let me know in the comments, he's just used, do you think, am I right? Should he just use, compare it to a Tesla salary, which again will be a little skewed because they get stock, but compare it to a Honda salary, a Kia salary of an assembly worker. Compare it to the competition that you're trying to beat. That would have been a better, they have that data. That would have been a better comparison, I think.
That's why we put our proposal in 2 weeks ago to say, look, you want us to choose bankruptcy over supporting our workers? Here's our proposal. Let's work through this. We've heard nothing.
Last question. How worried are you that this could be an extended strike?
Worried, but we're prepared. We're professionals, 120-year-old company. We've seen world wars. We've seen pandemics. We're prepared. My team is fantastic. But it's not necessary. We still have a few hours to go. Let's go. Let's get a historic deal done.
And it is one of those things where, fascinating enough, Ford is the only American automobile company to never declare bankruptcy and still be around. Well, I guess kind of makes sense. GM, bankrupt, 2009. Well, I believe 3 or 4 times now. Jeez Louise. Yeah, they've gone bankrupt quite a few times. The most modern bankruptcy for General Motors, you have to specify, that was 2009. Chrysler, again, they went bankrupt so bad, European companies bought them out. They went bankrupt just like GM in 2009. So Ford has had some hard times, and it will be interesting to see. I think it's going to be I think there are many reasons it's going to be a long strike, partially because I think that's what Sean Fain wants, and it's also what the union wants, because they're saying they're in favor of a strike. I should specify, I don't think they've done a duration poll yet, but again, Sean Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers. I think they're doing partial shutdowns where they're not shutting down every single UAW employee. They're not all striking at once. They're doing partial shutdowns because they can have a longer negative impact on the big three. They have that $820 million fund that they use for strikes. And again, each member, I believe, receives $500 per week of strike. If they were to all strike at once, they'd only be able to have that strike sustained 11.2 months before they'd ask for additional assistance from family, friends, what have you, or get a job at another automotive company. So I suspect they're going to do the partial strikes because they can sustain those for much longer. And I should perhaps do those calculations. I need more data on the number of employees that are currently striking. I think it was about 13,000 last article I saw. And again, this is a very fluid situation. It's changing by the hour, saying they leave negotiations and strikes. So maybe let me know in the comments. Maybe I should get some ballpark numbers. But of course, a 13,000 employee strike is much lesser than, or fewer than, a 147,000 worker strike. So they can sustain these partial strikes for obviously an infinitely greater amount of time. So it'll be interesting to see if this approach is the most positive one for the UAW to get what they want, or will it be a breaking point for the big three? Will they just continue? Will they just go out and hire? Well, they are pejoratively called scabs. I prefer band-aids because I think it's a more appropriate term for those workers that cross those picket lines. Do you think that might be a long-term solution? Now, in terms of the comments, and I wish YouTube was more transparent. Of course, they censor more things than the government these days. The video, within one day, got 52,000 views and 245 likes. Unfortunately, YouTube, in a disgusting act of censorship, we don't know the dislike. I need to look at a reputable third party where they have analytics where they will measure that for you. So they got pretty good audience. And it looks like some of the top responses, one is from someone by the name of John Krebs, 1999. This gentleman said, quote, "I am UAW for John Deere. I was involved in the 2021 strike. The company was singing a similar song about how paying us fairly would result in bankruptcy. The contract we signed was worth $3.5 billion. In 2022, Deere roughly made $7.1 billion in profits. Currently, for 2023, they made $10 billion profit. The big three will be just fine, paying their workers a decent wage. Perhaps Ford should focus on increasing quality. eliminating dealership price gouging, and improving delivery times. That will make up for the pennies they might lose on keeping a sustainable workforce, unquote. Now, again, there's a big delta between what did they get? They got 3.5 billion. The UAW wants 80 billion. So 3.5 billion to 80 billion. And John Deere, they're also not doing so great in terms of global economy, in terms of competition. Case New Holland, which is more often than not known as Case, they're going exponentially. And actually, now that I think about it, I believe they should be part of the UAW because Case, I believe, is owned by Fiat, which again is the parent company behind Stellantis. So it'll be interesting to see what the cost comparison is, but John Deere has more and more competition as each day goes by. It'll be interesting to see what the long-term plan is. Also, another thing farmers don't like about John Deere, they are also one of those people that they don't like you to be able to repair your own vehicles. Well, in this case, farm equipment. It's kind of like an iPhone. They're very much locking it down, so you have to pay exorbitant fees for them to fix it for you. But another topic for another time, perhaps. You also have somebody named of Clara22123. Very inspirational of a name. Almost as silly as someone calling someone like topping. Ridiculous. Oh wait. Partially digress. Now, in all seriousness, she says, quote, making money should be a routine. What? Jeez Louise. Grammar, folks. It's lost the art. Although we keep paying public schools more and more money every year. Oh, interesting. Nevertheless, Clara attempts to say, quote, making money should be a routine. A weak dollar can signal a weak economic downturn, making me to ponder on what are the best possible ways to hedge against inflation. And I've overheard people saying inflation is a money eater, thus worried about my savings. My savings are around $200K, especially now I've retired, unquote. That's all. Yeah, looks like a couple, long. That's all one sentence? Jeez Louise. Yes, she got 103 likes. Inflation is, as I believe a wise man once said, the whole quote, you lose me at the moment, but I believe Reagan was a gentleman who said, inflation is the quiet thief that's all around and constantly a threat to everyone. It's true. It literally eviscerates your savings. You used to be able to actually get money, to put money in a savings account at a bank. They actually pay you a pretty good percentage where you could actually hedge inflation, aka you could beat the amount of inflation every year. Now, for a myriad of reasons, including the government printing more money that's ever been minted before, we have hyperinflation, 40-year hyperinflation. So your savings are worth nothing, thanks to the government, which again, as money was printed by both left and then subsequently a little bit on the right. And then the most ironic thing in history, the Inflation Reduction Act, which caused more inflation in and of itself. But nevertheless, this person has a point about inflation. It eviscerates your savings. And ironically enough, the people who pretend to care about the lower class, their policies eviscerate the lower class. But I partially digress. Back to the comments. Another person by the name of MacDaddy M86DS says, quote, when Ford's stock value falls to the floor, Farley will be out because it's his job to protect shareholder value, unquote. Well, it's partially true. The stock drops exponentially depending on where you're working and what the long-term goals of the company are. But part of his job is also, whether he likes it or not, probably not, but he has to be working with the union. So part of his job is negotiating with them and trying to make sure that sometimes it seems like an insurmountable task, but making sure everyone is happy and content and profitable. But that's one of the hard things. Now, this person did get 43 likes, so pretty popular comment. Another person by the name of Soju9GB, interesting name, says, quote, I love how every contract is pushed out until October or November because of corporate greed, manipulating tactics, and buying every past union committee. The only difference is this contract is the union. The only difference this contract is the union is not selling out, unquote. Grammar. Nevertheless, this person got 47 likes, interestingly enough. And again, when did GM get that 1,000 asks from the UAW? Because you have two parties saying one, and they had these offers for quite some time. There seems to be a lot of different stories about when the negotiations started, when they're going back and forth. Some people are saying Sean Fain skipped meetings with executives. And it's gotten to the point where I almost wish these folks had little Apple trackers, because there's so many moving balls here. It's like, what's really going on? You guys have somebody named of Wingnut76 saying, quote, I don't work at Ford, but I'm hearing is, I wish, Google is a multi-trillion-dollar entity. They can seemingly do everything with technology. Why can't they make autocomplete or, I don't know, a little help for the grammar? I know we have spell check these days, which helps a lot of people out, but why not? Again, maybe this technology they're working on right now, a grammar checker too. I know some softwares do it, but nevertheless, this person says, I don't work at Ford, but what I'm hearing is there is money for everyone except those who actually make the product, unquote. And again, perhaps it's just my dyslexia with some of this as well. I can't help but think maybe that's the real thing. I make those types of mistakes. This person got 118 likes. Interestingly enough, another one. Trying to see another popular comment here. That's not a good one. A lot of these comments are getting 1 or 2 likes, though you can still take the time to like this video, as it'll probably help with the mysterious YouTube Google algorithm. That's what I'm told. It kind of depends which way the wind is blowing. Google seems to change it so often. Somebody named of Create Your Worth, which interestingly has a Fox body Mustang in the profile, or Create Your Worth. This person says, quote, most people that want the 40% have never read the income statement from Ford or any business. If you do read the financial reports, you will see that the big three have slowly been earning less net profit. People see the gross profits as record breaking, but the net is what is killing these companies. People fail to see the bottom line after everyone is paid has been shrinking for years. If you gave into the 40% demand and 32-hour work week, say goodbye to Ford and others. Good luck. You read it here first. Now, interestingly enough, that was one of the few contrarian comments, and that person got 2 likes. So, not all too popular. Looks like, let's see. Not a single person appropriately calling out the reporter for a lack of a suit, though. Come on. Again, I'm no fashion guru or fashion police. I just know every man looks better suited up. Now, let me know in the comments. Historically, Ford has given the most in comparison to all of these companies. Now, do you think they will be the first to accept a new contract? Or do you think they're striking for the sake of striking? Again, everyone keeps saying it's a historic moment because it is. These companies are changing in many ways. They are pivoting to EV, which inherently will mean less UAW jobs. Now, overall, I think kind of like when you have main disruptive technologies, jobs usually, some specific job titles go away, but the number of jobs kind of seems the same because they create new jobs. So with EVs, like Tesla, they have a lot of engineering resources over there. They have a lot of computer science degrees over there, but they have fewer people doing rudimentary skill sets. Like in certain, I'm not saying all assembly is rudimentary. I'm saying there's certain tasks that they've been able to automate more than the competition, and they've eliminated certain roles, but they've gained in other roles. So it will be interesting to see which of the big three comes to an agreement first. But given all the information we currently have and the kind of the climate and the comments I see from everyone and the sentiment you hear from the UAW, I think it's going to be a long strike. How long? That's a real multi-billion-dollar question. I was going to say $1 million, quite literally the billion-dollar question. And how much can they give before they are hindered in terms of their abilities to reinvest in the companies and to transition the companies to EV and all the new fancy tech? Heck, if it was up to me, they'd all be making great V8 stick-shift vehicles. But that's just my 3 cents. It used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation, gotta go 3 cents. Should be 4 cents, but I'm a generous man. Granted, it is still free to click the subscribe button. I know it's a high, lofty goal, but trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September, and I greatly appreciate your comments as well. Thank you, everyone, so much for taking the time to tune in today. Also, I know we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget to take the time to like and comment the video. I really appreciate your feedback, whether you're on the front line of UAW or in the corporate office at Ford. Your feedback makes the show much more interesting and is able to make me update the videos with even more data, and it really helps it, I think, make a better experience. And also, the feedback improves the show because thanks to the comments, I realized I need to actually work on my enunciation as well as my articulation and slowing down a little bit when I'm speaking. So together, we're going to make the show together that much better, and I greatly appreciate your participants. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.